Welcome to the REI Diamonds Show with Dan Breslin, your source for real estate investment jewels of wisdom.
Welcome to the REI Diamond Show with Joshua Inglis on the transition from fix and flip to new construction. I'm Dan Breslin, host of the REI Diamond Show. I'd like to begin by first welcoming you to the show. Whether you are checking us out for the first time or you're a returning and loyal REI Diamond Show listener, I want you to know that for the next 45 minutes or so, you can count on hearing only money-making real estate ideas and strategies that are working right now in the 2016 real estate market. So I'm on Facebook every once in a while, and my news feed is always full of my real estate friends posting pics of their flips, motivational quotes, and, of course, a bunch of other nonsense. One of my Facebook friends, Josh Inglis, was always posting, like, top-notch videos and pics of his deals and his listings, his fix and flip, second-story additions, recently put up some new construction. So I made a point of taking the time to run out and check out his first new construction deal, which was a two-house infill development in Portage Park here in Chicago. I knew I'd be inviting him on the show, but I wanted to inspect his work firsthand since I strive to keep my guest quality here on the REI Diamond Show as high as possible. Upon digging in a little more, I discovered that Josh is also a very active real estate agent and real estate investor. He has mastered the art of selling houses quickly, and I'm talking about both his rehabs and his clients' homes, and I promise that I'm going to extract those details about his sales strategy here on this episode. Josh is also the founder of Redevelop University, one of the largest real estate investment clubs here in Chicago, and also a coach for fortune builders, actively mentoring students all across the U.S. But we're not going to get into the coaching here on the show. Josh has also fixed and flipped more than 70 houses in the last 4 years and currently has 17 projects in process. So this is going to be another great episode, and I'm warning you right now, there are several real estate investment jewels of wisdom buried here, and I suggest you grab a pen and pad to take notes. Let's get started, shall we? Welcome to the show, Mr. Josh Inglis. How are you today?
Awesome, Dan. I really appreciate you having me on. I'm doing awesome. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. I guess just to give the listeners a background of who you are, maybe you could talk about briefly what you did before you got into real estate, how you got into real estate, and what your business looks like today.
I got into real estate approximately about 10 years ago now. First started, I bought a rental property. Of course, I bought it at the worst time, right before the market crash. So learned a lot about buying properties right. I mean, I just kind of winged it. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I thought that that was a great idea just to buy rental properties. And, you know, in his book, he doesn't go into much detail. You know, his book is it's a mentality book versus a blueprint. So I read the book and I thought I knew a lot. Yeah, so I read the book and I thought I knew a lot and bought a rental property. Of course, bought it at the wrong time. Of course, I'm not the only one that did that, but I still own that rental till today. Obviously I'm still upside down on it. And then, you know, it slowly evolved from there. I acquired more rentals, but the issue was we weren't able to acquire rentals fast enough because you would put a down payment, you'd tie up, some of them we'd buy for cash, and, you know, it was during a time, you know, we started buying them while the market was going down. So we would buy them and there was nowhere to finance them. So, you know, I figured there has to be a quicker way to do this. What we ended up doing is actually shifting gears, and then we started flipping. So that eventually changed to now, you know, I would consider more of a healthy blend of flipping and then, of course, acquiring the rentals. The rentals are great because that's your long-term wealth. And, you know, flipping, I don't care how much you systematize it, it's still a job. You know, there's a lot of investors I know out there that just continue flipping properties, and that's in wholesaling. And that's all fine and great, but the thing is, what are you doing it for for 20, 30 years down the line? So that's why I'm a strong believer in, continue building rental properties. So now at any given time we're, like right now, I think we've got 16 or 17 active projects that we're actively flipping. And then, that's a blend of, rehabs, and then also, we've gotten into some new construction, and then we own about 20 rentals, and that's all across the Chicagoland area.
I see you post a ton of stuff on Facebook. I'm your friend on there. These beautiful videos of the properties that you've done. Really nice, top-notch rehab. Nice job, nice presentation. And I believe you're an agent as well, right, Josh?
Yeah, that is correct. I'm licensed now.
So I'm going to go to a couple different questions there. Do you also, as an investor, so, flipping 16, 17 properties at a time, that's got to be a lot of work. Managing and building the rental portfolio, do you also serve retail clients and, do listings and things of that nature? Or is that strictly like a lot of investors who hold their license just for, access to the MLS and things of that nature?
Well, I've started doing retail business as well. I've found that, flipping, again, I don't know too many flippers out there that have sold their business turnkey to another company. I hear of real estate agents that do it all the time, and I found that being a real estate agent in a lot of ways is actually a lot easier than flipping properties even. So I've even started doing that, working with retail clients and that sort of thing as well.
So I have a couple questions on the flips, and then I want to transition, a few minutes to the new construction just to give you a heads up what's coming. But the first question regarding your flips. So I see some of them. If you could give the listeners an idea of what the after repair value and sale prices are on your flips, and how do you specifically choose them? Is it a numbers thing? Are you looking for a house that will sell for a certain price? Is there a profit margin? If so, what is that profit margin? Or any of the other characteristics of a deal that Josh Inglis is willing to step in, buy, renovate, and flip?
Yeah, so the criteria we use is essentially we're looking for a 10% return on our resale value. So, just to make the numbers, easy, if we're selling a $500,000 house, we're looking for a minimum net of $50,000. So that's after, closing costs, realtor commissions, and everything. So that's our goal, and like I said, 10% is our minimum. Of course, we would like 15%, but we will do a deal at 10% if it's, a simpler job or we know our numbers, that they're concrete. So.
Got it. Do you stick with properties? I mean, the ones I always see, maybe you're doing stuff in the lower price, and I just happen to see the $500,000 resale values. Is that where you like to play, in that space there and that price point, or will you guys also flip properties, say, with a $140,000, $150,000 out sale?
I mean, we're all over the board. I mean, we flip stuff as cheap as, believe it or not, like $60,000. Our latest new construction job is like a $1.2 million, $1.2 million plus new construction home. So I don't like sticking with one price point, to be honest. In my opinion, that's a risk. There's a lot of people that only do, I'm only going to do houses between $700,000 and $900,000. Well, if you play in just certain markets, as the last crash taught us, things change. That's why I like to have a nice, healthy portfolio from, the cheapest of the cheap all the way to, the high end stuff. So the high end goes, because that's the first to go. If that drops off, well, I still got other investments where, we'll be fine. So, and really it comes down to where can I get the deals where the numbers make sense.
Yeah, I think that's important. I notice, I certainly remember my own mentality 10, 12 years ago. Yeah, 10 years now, 2006, when I got into the business, and I was trying to do deals only in my backyard and in one specific part of one specific county outside of Philadelphia. And now, my partners and I, obviously, we're in multiple markets, and we're willing to, take that ride. So that willingness, for someone like you to validate that thought process, having 16 flips going, it's like, I don't know if it's possible to cherry pick, like you said, and do only $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 flips and get a large volume of those going. What would you say are some of the benefits of having that large volume of flips, and what were some of the growing pains to getting there and starting to see some of those economies of scale?
I guess for us to get to that type of volume, what we started doing, and some of the growing pains we had, you can only manage so much yourself. You got to bring in, when you're doing that sort of, and then that's not even a super high volume, but once you start doing, more than, 3 or 4 flips, you're going to have to get help from somewhere. So I'm in this business with my brother. We have our roles and responsibilities. I'm usually, now we're very defined in what we do. So I'm in acquisitions, marketing, and obviously resale. And then my brother is construction management on his projects because now he's very involved and hands-on on the construction. Now, in order to scale and go beyond that, you still need more help. So the way that I've scaled is joint venturing with people. So I'll have them manage the rehab, and they'll do things for me at cost. So essentially, they're doing the work for free up until we sell it, and then so my success and their success is equally. We're both vested in the deal, although they may not put any money in the deal. If they don't manage the rehab correctly or it goes over budget, that's going to affect their bottom line and how much they make as well. So that's how we've been able to really scale this. So out of the 16, 17 that we have, over half of those are with joint venture partners. So that's how we were able to scale. And of course, some of the issues we had in growing was relying on one GC for too many jobs. That's the most dangerous thing you can do. One of our standards of practice is that we will not give a GC more than 2 jobs until they prove themselves from A to Z on one job. And then we scale them. If they can do 1 effectively, okay, now we can give you 2. If you can do 2 effectively, now we'll give you 3. And if you don't follow that rule, you can get in a lot of trouble. And we've been there before, where we had a contractor that had too many of our jobs. And when you're trying to fire a contractor for multiple jobs, it's not an easy thing to do. So that's where we really learned a lot, and unfortunately, we, in some of those cases, lost some money. So,
I've been there.
With this process, so with doing the process now with the joint venturing, I've had a lot more success. I don't have to look over anyone's shoulder to make sure they're doing their job. It's directly tied to them doing what they need to do, and they want to finish it as quickly as possible themselves so they can get paid. They're not getting a dime until, it's finished. So, and then of course you got to get people that you can trust to do that as well. Somebody that's not going to be, stealing from you and that sort of thing as well, because that's very easy to do in this industry. So really getting good quality people that you can trust and know construction as well, or at least are, if they're not super knowledgeable, at least they're willing to put in the work and learn and that sort of thing. So that's the most important part of scaling your business is putting the right people on the bus. We've hired project managers and that sort of thing in the past, and we didn't put the right people on the bus. And that's, again, that got us in some cases in the trouble where, they really didn't have the experience to be a project manager. And so either they didn't have the drive or, you got to find people with the same drive that you have.
Got it. Now, these joint ventures, what's the expectation? Are you literally talking about maybe like a guy and this guy's got a crew of 4 people and, your joint venture partner is footing the bill on the labor for his crew to do the work, or is basically hiring subs at cost and, you guys are bringing capital from whichever source? What expectation have you set or would you expect from this joint venture partner? Because, it could be a variety of things.
Yeah, exactly. You could structure a joint venture in so many different ways. We keep it simple. I source the deal, so I find the deal. I finance the deal, and then all they're responsible for is managing the subs and doing the construction, and that's it. So I essentially they have no money in the deal at all. Again, their only skin in the game is their time and their effort. And again, I don't suggest this for anyone just to have the same arrangement unless you really trust that person that you're going to do that joint venture with. And that's their role, is to manage the rehab, and that's how we're able to do as many as we're doing now, is by doing that arrangement.
What percentage of profit is to split on something like that?
35%. So construction, in my opinion, is the biggest part of it all. Obviously, there's two things if you do them right, you can screw everything else up, and that's if you acquire the property correctly, meaning you get the right price for the home, and you do the rehab correctly, you can screw everything else up and still make money. So obviously me finding the property is very important, but then putting that competent person in there to manage the rehab successfully is equally as important. So for that, and since there's the most moving parts with the rehab, we give 35%.
And the 35%, is that counted as an expense before calculating your 10% return on retail value, or would that 35% be coming out of the 10% return on resale value mentioned earlier?
Yeah, it all depends on a case-by-case scenario. Again, I mean, some deals we're doing, 25% if we're lucky on some deals. And then some, at the end of the day, we might not make the full 10% because we got to split it. But the reason why I say 10% is because then you're safe in the deal. So it's not necessarily so much a return, because here's the thing, my time commitment on some of these deals, I've never even been to them. I trust my joint venture partners that much that, at this point, and we've done enough deals that I don't have to sit there and actually go to the property. So it's almost like I'm wholesaling a deal in some cases, because I'm not there on a daily basis. Again, I haven't even been to some of these properties. So in a way, it's like I'm remotely rehabbing them. So it's definitely worth that 35%. And even if at the end of the day, when I split it and I'm only making 6.5%, then it's still, in my opinion, it's still worth it.
Yeah, and for the joint venture partner, I mean, it's a home run. He's got no risk and all upside other than some time in the deal.
Yep, exactly.
Sweet. Now, at some point, you're fixing and flipping properties. You started out with that rental, and then you had this flash of lightning idea, or maybe it didn't go down quite like that, and you decided to start to do new construction. Can you talk about that transition, the mindset shift, and kind of how that happened, and maybe some of the challenges involved with that and benefits of that? I know that's like a lot in one question there, but
Sure. Well, the new construction really wasn't something that we were necessarily ever thinking of. It just so happened that we came across the property. It sat on two lots, and the house was on part of the other lot. Well, actually, the house was on a single lot. It was just a double wide lot. So, we figured, well, we could knock this house down, and we could rehab it, and we could get, we can make okay money, or we could turn this into two new construction homes and, essentially double, triple our return. And so it was just a no-brainer. So we kind of just fell in it based on a deal that we purchased. And then, of course, as we started doing the new construction, we realized that in a lot of ways, new construction is even easier than doing, and I'm not saying a regular rehab, but it's easier than doing a gut rehab. It's a blank slate. Every time you do a gut rehab, you have surprises on the project. The new construction home, this was our first one. We even GC'd it ourselves. So my brother was the general contractor. We got our general contracting license. He hired all the subs. Doing that process, my brother learned a ton of information. Whereas, again, in the future, even hiring general contractors and that sort of thing, my brother knows a lot more by actually being involved in pretty much every aspect of the project, from hiring the framers, the demolition company, the plumbers, the HVAC, the electrician, learning how to properly schedule things, it really taught us a lot. And again, what we found is it's a blank slate. It's easier to get bids. The subcontractors like doing new construction more. And in my opinion, you know, I had a meeting last night where I polled the room, and over half the room, you know, and we had probably, I'd say, around 50 people in the room, and over half the room, which was about 25 investors, had done a rehab. And then I polled the room and I found out how many people did new construction, and there was really somebody that built their own house, and there was someone else that, I don't know what they built. They built a log cabin, and then there was one other person that built a couple houses, but it was like a few years ago. So you can see there's a lot less competition when it comes to, in a lot of ways, in new construction than there is even in rehabbing. So for us, it's a no-brainer. You know, everybody, you know, I'll let everyone else continue doing gut rehabs. We'd rather go the new construction route where there's less competition, and then at the end of the day, you have a much nicer product for someone to move into. You know, when you're gut rehabbing a 100-year-old house, you may put all the bells and whistles in it, but it's still a 100-year-old house. And for that fact, we've really liked doing new construction. And
nice.
And that's going to be our focus moving forward with any big job. So we're pretty much going to turn, I wouldn't say we're going to turn down gut rehabbing altogether, but we're going to slowly do less and less and less of that and do more new construction. And our goal, you know, with these, this was our first ones doing them. Once we broke ground, it was 6 months for the construction. Our end goal is to get that down to 4 months, which we, you know, have found a way for the next time where we can cut a month off already. So, you know, on our next project, that's our goal, 5 months, and continuing getting that timeline down.
Nice. Now, this is the house that I saw, right? This pair of new houses I stopped by. Cool. So I heard some of the story, and if you could just kind of maybe, let's talk about the timeline a bit. So you bought this house, and you were thinking about renovating the house, and then you shifted gears, and then you had to go through this learning process of the timeline involved with demo permits, new construction permits, subdividing the lot. Could you just kind of talk about, like, I kind of want to hear about the decision. So you bought this house, and then how did you come up with the idea? Did somebody point you in the direction of maybe you should build 2 houses, or, you know, kind of how did that transpire? And then what did that do and affect your timelines? Because if you brought private money to the table or a hard money loan or what have you, all of a sudden you were anticipating being in and out in 6 months, and now you had to be in and out in a longer period of time. So can you kind of give us a play-by-play there?
Sure. So again, when we bought it, we really didn't have. We originally were going to buy it as a rehab and do the flip, and I think we were right at 10% by doing a rehab. And you know, that's fine again, but it's a lot of work for 10%. And the fact that we had this double lot, well, we thought to ourselves, well, you know, why don't we do a new construction home? It just made a lot more sense because we had the double lot. We could get, not only could we could get more as well than if we rehab the existing home by doing new construction as well. So it just made a lot more sense financially, and that's why we went that route versus anything else. And that was just after playing with the numbers. So if we would have started from new construction and we had that idea from the very beginning, we definitely would have gone that route. But since we kind of were debating back and forth what we wanted to do, you know, it did delay things, you know, some time because of that. So it was more of really honestly a financial decision than anything to go the new construction route. The numbers just made a lot more sense. And like I said, we're essentially tripling our return from what we would have made by doing a rehab. Because in this neighborhood too, it was already a super huge lot. The original house was 50 by 185, and in Chicago, a 25 by 135 is considered a big lot. So this was an enormous lot. And in this neighborhood, which is Portage Park, you're not necessarily going to get a better return for having a double lot. So for that reason, we we figured, well, it's already got huge lots, even if we split it in half. So that's what we did. So it was a financial decision, just after playing with the numbers and really getting into the house and seeing like, okay, this was a really, it was an old farmhouse, so it needed a lot more work than even your typical Chicago house needs as well. So it was just poorly built. So that was also a big thing that made us take that decision to go new.
So what did the numbers look like? You bought it for how much? The construction, soft and hard costs were how much? And also what your expected sale prices are there and your expected profit?
So we bought the home in both lots for $120,000. The construction, I don't know necessarily all the closing costs and all that. I don't have that figured out yet necessarily, but I'd have to pull that up. But essentially, the construction for each house is about $330,000, and we expect to sell any. So it's like $60,000 a lot, and then $330,000 for the construction, and then we'll be selling anywhere between $500,000 to $550,000.
You're the listing agent on this. I know these houses, but also on the rest of your flips, Josh?
Depends. If an agent brings me a deal, depends on the situation. Sometimes I'll list it with the agent that brought me the deal. So
got it.
It really depends on, how we acquire the deal. This deal, we essentially sourced it ourselves, so I'm the listing agent on them.
Okay, so what is working now to sell rehab houses? Do you just put the MLS listing up in a sign out front, or do you have some tips, strategies that, you're implementing to help get your rehab houses sold?
For new construction, you can put properties on, Zillow at any time. So you could put those on, as soon as you break ground, you can have them up on Zillow and Trulia, those sites. Putting it on those sites, of course, doing some initial videos and that sort of thing, talking through the construction process. And then, of course, even before you go and it's finished, and we've sold houses this way on our rehabs. It didn't work out this way on the new construction, but while it's being constructed, we'll also, we'll put it on the MLS and pre-sell it that way as before it's even finished. What we found is that you can't pre-list something too soon. Most realtors aren't willing to wait 6 months to get paid, so you don't want to necessarily put anything on the MLS too soon. You're better off, about a couple months before completion, and that's where we've had success in the past. And in my opinion, a lot of people worry about market time, but when your front picture is a rendering or a picture of the plans, it doesn't really affect your market time. People can see, okay, it wasn't a finished house when you originally listed it. So, and you show that through the picture. So the MLS is really effective. And then, of course, once we go live, we have a really, really aggressive marketing campaign, which includes, we do multiple videos, we do 3D virtual tours, then we even do some really unique videos as well. Sometimes we'll bring in actors. The whole idea of it is to get people to share that's the power of social media. If you're just doing regular virtual tours and that sort of thing, yeah, you might get a couple likes from the Facebook community and on YouTube, but no one's really going to share it. It's not. So we really what we're trying to figure out is how do we make selling houses entertaining where people want to share that content and then get it out there in front of as many people as possible, and having those types of things on the web. And then, of course, doing mailers as well. One thing I like to do is the first weekend that we have a house listed is we have a big open house. And so we'll send out 1,000, 2,000, depending on the house, 3,000 mailers to the neighborhood, inviting everyone to the open house. And the reality is your neighbor's probably not going to buy your house, but the serious buyers that show up to the house are going to see just a massive amount of people at the open house. And we've sold houses at the first open house before because people come in, people want what they can't have. They see 10 groups of people in the house. It creates a bidding war. And that's always our goal with any house, is how do we get as much eyes and eyes, ears, and bodies in our home as possible. Because even though, again, your neighbors aren't necessarily going to buy your house, well, they may know someone who's looking to move into the neighborhood and that sort of thing. So all of our flyers say something like pick your neighbor, and then we have the open house at the same time that we have our regular scheduled open house. So it just creates that demand for that property.
Interesting. What's your average days on market for the flips?
I mean, it's really, since we do price points all over the board, I mean, our cheap stuff is like less than 5 days.
Wow.
And then, our more expensive stuff, it takes a little longer to sell. I don't, anything in the, above $500,000, then you're looking, you might get lucky and get it under a week, but, week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, somewhere around there.
So you do the same strategy, open house, 1,000, 2,000 mailers, regardless of the price point. So if this is $120,000, $150,000.
No, not. Yeah, if we're like, I gave you the example of a $60,000 home. We're not gonna. If you're doing mailers and all that, the numbers just don't make sense.
Yeah, I hear that.
Yeah. So it's got to be relative to how crazy we're gonna go with the marketing, relative to the price point. Obviously, the more expensive homes, the more aggressive we can be with the marketing and more mailers and that sort of thing we can send out.
Is this the kind of thing you would do for a retail client, Josh? Because you're talking about...
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
you'll
absolutely.
still do the same thing.
Yeah, and that's where, I found, and that's one of the reasons why I became an agent. Most of the agents that we were hiring just weren't doing a very good job at selling our homes. I mean, besides putting it up on the MLS, and, a lot of times we would even have our photographer go out there because we didn't like their photographer that they would hire. I mean, all they were doing is putting it on the MLS for us and literally presenting us with offers. That's all they were doing. And so when I show people my marketing plan, especially retail clients, they are absolutely, when they compare it to their previous agent, it's night and day. A lot of these agents aren't even, they're going in there with their cell phone and taking pictures of the home. I mean, I've gone into appointments where a previous agent, like for example, one of our recent ones, previous agent had it listed, 2 different agents over 2 years, and within 4 days we had 2 offers on the home. Just simply, we did adjust the list price, but only by $9,000. We adjusted the list price by $9,000. We did very nice pictures. We did all the marketing we're talking about. Within 4 days, we had 2 offers, and the seller accepted an offer $5,000 over asking. So it's not like we were even that far off from the previous list price. So this marketing, it works whether you're selling a retail client or a fully rehabbed home. You really got to get, at the end of the day, there's only 2 reasons why a home won't sell. It's either price or it's exposure. And you got to price it right, of course. And then number 2 is you got to expose the home to as many people as possible. And doing that marketing accomplishes that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking to myself, wow, here's an agent. Josh is willing to invest some of the money, that you're obviously going to make a commission to generate some of that exposure. And I think a lot of agents are just afraid to spend a dime to basically, bottom line, get the job done. Do you have a method of pricing? If you don't want to share that right now, that's fair. But, are you like kind of hey, it's 3% because I'm incurring these expenses, or will you just still take on a 2.5% listing like a lot of agents and still make that investment depending on the price point?
It really depends on the price point. I mean, my standard for what I'm doing is 3.5 to me because of it's not like I'm not investing money. I mean, on a house that I list, I'm investing at least a couple grand in marketing. So for that reason, my commission is a little higher. But at the end of the day, we're going to sell their home for more money, and then we're going to move it a lot quicker as well. So when I tell people my commission, it's not it's not even I really don't get objections for, that I'm charging 3.5% because people realize everything I'm doing. And for example, let's say someone has let's say they owe close to what we're trying to sell their home at. Well, in that case, I can scale back my marketing and then, scale back my commission a little bit, depending on, each unique individual situation. So, I'm not someone that says it's 3.5% no matter what. It really comes down to let's sit down. What's your goals? What do you need out of this transaction? And then we'll customize the plan according to the homeowner's, wants and needs. So, and then as far as pricing is concerned, of list price, I'm not sure if you're familiar with what reverse prospecting is, but we use that tool. It's a tool in the MLS which allows you the backdoor view of seeing essentially how many buyers are looking at various price points. This tool has given us just tremendous insight on where are the buyers looking. So, for example, let's just use a $200,000 home, for example. Every single time an agent lists a $200,000 home for $199,000, they're doing their client a big disservice. There's always less buyers at $199,000 than there are $200,000. And the reason is because the way that the MLS is set up, Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com, Redfin, if you go to those websites, everything's set up in usually even increments. So, for example, let's say somebody's looking to buy a home for $200,000. Well, their realtor probably has them set up on a search to look at homes between 150 to 250, or maybe 150 to 200, or 200 to 250. Most realtors aren't typing in, okay, I'm only going to show you homes between 199 and 250. They're going to do the easy thing and put 200 to 250. If you listed your home at 199, you've just missed, and you listed your home at 199, you've just missed that buyer. By using this reverse prospecting, we can see exactly how many buyers are looking at various price points, and we price it correctly. I've seen where sometimes a lower list price, there's less buyers than a higher list price. So, of course, we use comps to price things, but then we also take it to the next level, and then we really nail down where are the most buyers, and that's how we price our homes, so we price them strategically.
Wow, that's like a huge mistake that a lot of people are probably, including myself, commonly making when we're pricing our deals at that, hey, this is the 99-cent discount. Looks like significantly less money than $200K to be at $199, but you're explaining a mistake I've made. Are there any other common rehabber mistakes when I'm trying to sell a rehab house myself, Josh, similar to that, or that someone should look out for?
Well, like, for example, too, it's a good idea to put, as much information on the MLS as possible. Sometimes people, like, let's say you have a first floor bedroom or a first floor full bathroom. A lot of times people have searches set up on the MLS where they're looking for a home with a first floor bedroom. Maybe they have their grandparent or something that stays at the home, and they need a first floor bedroom. So putting those features that your home has is extremely important. Again, going back to that house that the two previous agents failed to sell. The agent previous to me didn't even have it listed that the home had a basement. So, a lot of people were looking at it and they saw the home, and a lot of people didn't even realize that it didn't even have a basement. They didn't have a picture of the basement. So how would someone know that? So just things like that, putting as much detail in there, putting in the actual school names. If it's a really good school district, that's really important. You could put, like, for example, Chicago is, District 299. You can put 299, but if you got a good school district, you want to make sure you put the school name in the MLS as well, which a lot of agents just don't do.
This is great. I mean, it's like paying attention to the details, the kind of thing that all successful people that I talk to and know, are paying attention to these details, getting that information right. I mean, even on one of my own listings of a property that I have for sale right now, I noticed last night that somehow, it was listed as like a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. And the reality is the house is a 4-bed, 2-bath. I mean, do you think that's going to change the dynamic of the deal? And maybe, of course it is,
absolutely.
right? Even it's an investor deal. It's like, it's kind of like bottom of the barrel condition. It's not rehab, but it's still going to affect that investor, that my buyer's going to have blinders on through the search and not even see that 2-bed. No one wants a 2-bed, 1-bath house. You can't get as much rent as a 4-bed house. So it just completely changes the dynamic. Man, Josh, I would love to just continue on talking about the marketing, direct mail. I mean, this is where even as a real estate investor, I make all of my money in marketing, copywriting, paying attention to details and putting those details in letters and listings and emails.
Yep.
And I would love to continue on with this conversation for another 2-3 hours. But for the sake of time, we're going to switch gears and we're going to we're going to go into the rentals. I know you do rentals, and I kind of want to hear, what is your investment philosophy when it comes to rentals? We're talking location, rental rates. Is there thought put into your choosing of rentals based on, the tenant avatar that you would have coming in? And, what's your strategy? Are you a buy, rehab, rent, refinance, or are you using your rentals as like kind of a place for cash to sit and create a return as you bring that in from your other business?
Yeah, great question. So with rentals, we have some criteria. We look for a minimum of, we want brick homes. I like brick homes a lot better than frame homes. In Chicago, just brick homes were built much better. So we always look for brick homes. We always look for homes that are at least 3 bedrooms and have the ability of adding a second bathroom. And we'll buy some 2-bedroom, 1-bath, but then we got to have the ability of adding another bedroom and another bathroom. So at the end of the day, it needs to be a home where it's at least a 3-2. We're also looking for homes that have garages, and if they don't have a garage, that's fine. We can build a garage, but again, we got to get it at a much more discounted price to build the garage. Having that, being in a neighborhood that is primarily, for the most part, homeowners versus renters. You want to be in a neighborhood where there's a pride of ownership. If you're driving through a neighborhood and there's trash all over the place and that sort of thing, that's not a neighborhood where we want to invest. We're in areas, we primarily invest in the South Side now, and we're looking for areas that where there's very little crime, and the only crime that might be committed in an area that we might be buying in is maybe some sort of domestic dispute, between like a husband and wife, but that's going to be, I don't care if you're in Naperville, Illinois, or anywhere, that's all over the place, but we're looking for areas also with very, very, very low crime. It's important. Our goal is to have a family move into the home and stay there forever. That's really our goal. And by having all those amenities, the reality is if somebody moves out of your home, they're likely going to sacrifice something that our home doesn't have. So just like when we sell a flip, if somebody's going to move somewhere, they're going to have less amenities. Why would they move? And of course, we always want a basement as well. So doing that, we attract much more quality tenants. For example, we do a lot of Section 8. One of my Section 8 tenants has a doctorate degree, and they're a Section 8 tenant. And, they have more education than even myself. The only way you're going to attract a high-quality tenant like that is by buying the right kind of properties. So that's extremely, extremely important. Not buying anything on a busy street. That's it. Just like a home that you're going to flip, the same applies. Even though you can get a really good deal on a house that might be, let's just say, for example, a 2-1, there's no ability to add a 3rd bedroom or a 2nd bathroom, we'll probably pass up that deal. Nowadays, 1 bathroom is just functionally obsolete. So we want that home where someone moves in and they stay there. And the purchase prices we're looking at, we're buying anywhere between $40,000 to $70,000 on the high end, and then putting anywhere between, if we're paying $70,000, then it's going to be a very, 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 very light rehab. And then we're putting anywhere between $10,000 to $30,000 into them. and then our rent is anywhere between $1,400 to $1,600 a month. So we're doing pretty well on our our numbers. So even financed, we're typically cash flowing anywhere between $400 to $600 a month in rent.
Are you finding those deals on the MLS?
Yeah, the nice thing is, especially on the south side, you can find. You just use the MLS to find deals. It's really not that difficult. What we've done a lot is purchasing like short sales and that sort of thing. They're a lot of work making the offers on them, but it detracts other investors from making offers on them. So we'll wait. I don't care if it takes a year to buy a house. I'll stay in the transaction as long as it takes. A lot of reasons why short sales sit there on the market too is because the listing agents offer lousy commissions. We bought one where the listing agent made 4% listing, and then they offered the buyer 2%, so it was like a $500.
Wow.
So they, so they were doing their clients a disservice, because what agent's going to sit there when they see that and even want to be involved in that transaction? There's not many agents that'll do that. So for that example, to me, it's the low-hanging fruit. You just got to put a lot of offers out there, and some will stick, some won't. But that's, if we can get them at the price where we make the offer, then we'll buy them. If the bank comes back and gives us a ridiculous value, then we'll dispute it. We'll give them comp, and then try to get another valuation. If the valuation comes in right, or sometimes it comes a little bit higher than what we wanted, but it's still a good deal, we'll buy it. So it's just willing to wait is really the what's going to make you successful with buying short sales in the city.
Got it. Yeah, and I assume that would be short sales almost in every market, depending on the supply and demand characteristics as well. It sounds, Josh, like you're very selective, and I had a feeling that was going to be the case when I asked you to share your investment philosophy. And I find that, a lot of newer investors or investors who are even a year, 2 years in don't necessarily have the same criteria and, selective attitude toward the rentals until they've learned their lesson the hard way and bought 2 or 3 or 4 properties or even more that just didn't fit. I have a friend, he bought 120 properties in areas that he no longer cares to invest. Well, now he's either got to divest all those properties or just kind of hang on. He's hanging on to them. I mean, they're cash flowing. He's making money. They're all rehabbed. He rehabbed every one of them. But then he shifted his philosophy, and he'd rather be in A neighborhoods. And, you can find the same number of deals, but he'd rather invest larger amounts of capital in the A neighborhoods rather than dealing with the tenant issues and higher maintenance in the neighborhoods where he owns properties with, say, $55,000 mortgages and a little bit more high maintenance tenants paying $800-900 a month in Philadelphia.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a fine line. I mean, I would consider the neighborhoods I invest in like B- neighborhoods. I think that's where, and Chicago, in my opinion, is the best market in the United States to, at least currently, to invest. I mean, taxes are, compared to the suburbs, it's still high relative to the rest of the United States, but taxes are relatively low, at least for now they are, till Rahm raises them.
Yeah, we'll see, right?
Yeah, but taxes are relatively low in the city of Chicago, and rents are pretty high. I mean, I don't know too many markets where you can buy a property for $50,000, put $20,000 into it, and then get $1,400 to $1,600 a month in rent. I don't know. Chicago is one of the only markets that I know that you could do that in, and you can get guaranteed rent with Section 8. I mean, it's a win-win, and again, a lot of people have this notion that Section 8 are going to be bad tenants. Section 8 tenants, if you screen them right and you put the right ones in there, are awesome. You have guaranteed rent every single month. Again, I have a doctor who has a Section 8 voucher. You can get very quality tenants. And if a renter destroys your property, they will lose their Section 8 voucher, which I don't know. I've heard various things but there's like a waiting list for like 5 years to even get a Section 8 voucher in the city of Chicago. So if somebody messes up your property, they can lose that Section 8 voucher, and they'll lose it for the rest of their life. And for someone to lose that is a big deal, obviously, because now they have to, they're going to have to pay rent the rest of their lives. And so we find that in a lot of cases, with putting the right Section 8 tenants in there, the house will be kept very well because people don't want to lose that voucher.
I'm going to switch gears here. So, Josh, to you, and you don't have to name this person personally. Some people don't, because there are people that are in the markets and prefer to remain anonymous. But who is the most successful real estate investor or developer to you, and why?
I don't know if the locally here in the Chicagoland area, somebody I really admire, and he's a realtor / investor. It would be Frank Botro, really. He's really got an awesome system, and although he invests himself, obviously, but he helps a lot of people invest in areas like he primarily does the South Side. And so what he does, and he has kind of a turnkey system for a lot of people even starting out, and able to help people in that way, and to really help someone get their feet wet and do their first deal. I just have the utmost respect for Frank and what he does, and the guy is an extremely, extremely hard worker, and he really has a passion for helping people. And I just think what he's doing is awesome and transforming a lot of these communities. And I think he's even given away some houses over the years and that sort of thing. It's just he's got an awesome system. So really love what Frank's doing.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Frank has helped open quite a few doors for me too, Josh. Since I moved to Chicago from Philadelphia about 2 years ago, so I could be close to my daughter who's lived here for the past 10 years. She's like 14 now. And Frank, I met Frank actually before I moved to Chicago. I met Frank, and we hit it off right away. And he, like I said, introduced me to some different people who really helped smooth the way for our quick opening here in Chicago. And I did have Frank as a previous guest on the show, so I'll make sure to include that interview that we did. Oh man, it must have been almost a year ago now, but it was solid. Frank Montroe, success mindset, work hard, and it was one of the most popular episodes we had. So I'll make sure I include that in the show notes as well.
Yeah, every time I talk to him, I get motivated.
You read Frank.
He's like the local Tony Robbins.
Yeah. You read his Facebook post, you get motivated. You see when you first jump out of bed or something, like, whoa, yeah, kick ass, man. Let's get it done.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Josh, can you name 2 or 3 life-changing books? Could be real estate, mindset, success related.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one big book, and even, watching his videos or going to events, is Tony Robbins. He's got quite a few great books, like, Awake the Giant Within, Unlimited Power. He's just got great books. Again, the thing I've found in this business, you can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you don't have the drive and you don't have the desire and the passion for what you're doing, at the end of the day, it's still a job, right? You got to love what you do. So, Tony Robbins' books and his seminars have really changed my mindset and have just taken not only my business but my life to just a whole nother level. I definitely recommend anyone that's listening to check him out. I think he even has I saw his Netflix. He has like a Netflix video now, and that was really cool from one of his events. Or read one of his books. It's just, you got to have that mindset to start the day, jump right in. It's not so much about, he's not so much like a motivational speaker. It's more about, what are you passionate about, and really finding that and tapping into that. It really change your life. So that's number one. And then, of course, real estate related would have to be, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And, again, it's not a blueprint on how to become successful. It's more of a mindset book, and just how you look at money and how you look at investing, and, what society teaches us, and what reality is, and just changing your mindset. For example, I was younger, I used to think that $100,000 was a lot of money. Now $100,000 is nothing. So just having that mindset, and then also, again, I still follow that philosophy of true wealth is built with, rentals, passive income properties, and private money lending. That's where your long-term wealth is built. And so, I'll continue flipping, but I got to have that passive income as well. It's extremely important.
I actually just bought 18 copies of Rich Dad Poor Dad. I was interviewed there's a charity on the South Side, and their mission is to provide basically kind of like some basic entrepreneur training or employment skills for teenagers on the South Side to kind of keep them out of the gang life and things of that nature. So there's 18 of those kids, and I had mentioned reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I'm going to go down and give them to them basically as a starting point. I remember my dad gave that to me when I was 18, and I remember disregarding it. I might have read it, not understood it. And then when I was 25, I read it again, and it started to sink in and started to trigger a different thought process. But certainly that's been a most mentioned book in all of the real estate investment communities for sure. Josh, if you could share the crown jewel of wisdom with your 18-year-old self, what would that be?
I think that number one, if you want to be a real estate investor, number one is you got to make offers. When I started, that's what I did when I got serious about investing. But you make your money when you buy. And really, my really crown jewel would be I wish I would have gotten my real estate license sooner than later. Because again, going back to our conversation earlier, believe it or not, being a realtor, in my opinion, is much easier than being an investor. And, I think even when starting, I would have done more traditional, less investing, and then slowly brought the investing up and focus more, because that's how you learn as well, being a realtor. But, I look at a realtor transaction, and it's a tenth of the complexity that buying a home, flipping it, and selling it is. And just the benefits you have of being an agent and being a part of that, getting access to properties. I could pick up the phone. If I need to see a listed home, I don't have to wait for the agent to, I have to get a buyer's agent and then have them meet me at the house and then let me in the house. Having my license allows me to go into any listed home at least. And then also, every house doesn't work for us to buy. So if there's a deal I might look at and it doesn't work for me to buy it, the sellers, it doesn't work for them to sell it to me at that price, well, then we might have that conversation about possibly listing the home as well. So it's in my opinion, it's something that I wish I would have had sooner.
Nice, well said. And Josh, if anybody's listening, wants more information about you, how would be the best way for them to contact you or reach out?
Yeah, you can look me up on Facebook. Just type in my name, Joshua, and then Inglis, Inglis. Or they can go to just my regular real estate website, which is www.mwres.com. That stands for Midwest Real Estate Solutions.com. So MWRES.com.
Nice. I really appreciate you coming on the show. We could probably do a follow-up sometime in the future to really dig down on some of those marketing strategies, but I got a couple pages of notes and a ton of value here, and I'm sure our listeners did too. So I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to come and share with the REI Diamonds listeners here, Josh. Thanks.
Hey, thank you, Daniel. I really appreciate you having me on your show. Really an honor, and just excited that I had the opportunity to talk. So thanks for having me on.
And thank you for listening to this episode of the REI Diamond Show. Are you looking for super cheap, super profitable deals on real estate in one of our 4 major U.S. markets? I currently provide deals in Philadelphia, Chicago, Atlanta, and the Tampa Bay area in Florida. You can always view all of my available deals by going to www.reidiamonds.com and clicking Available Deals at the top of the page. You can also submit deals you have for sale as well. I am currently looking for and buying houses, buildings, commercial properties that I can either renovate and resell or hold. Bottom line, I have to be able to make a profit on those deals. I'm also looking for subdividable land parcels anywhere up to a $1.5, maybe $2 million purchase price, and also multiple lot infill new construction opportunities in the Philadelphia, Chicago, Florida, and Atlanta markets. You can submit those deals by clicking on the link Submit Deals at the top of the website, www.reidiamonds.com. And also, you can subscribe if you have not already been getting these episodes each Saturday when the new episodes are released. You can enter your email information at that site as well, and I will send you the latest REI Diamond Show episodes. And finally, I'd like to ask a favor of you. If you have been enjoying the show, I'd like to ask you now to take a few minutes to post a review either in iTunes or Google Play. It helps with the ratings, and I personally appreciate the feedback. And if you have certain questions, topics, you like discussed on a future episode, or if you have a guest suggestion, someone you'd like me to invite on the show, you can always contact me by clicking on the Contact Dan link at the top of the page at www.reidiamonds.com. And I'm done. Dan Breslin here. I will catch you next week.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the REI Diamonds Show with Dan Breslin. To receive email notifications of new weekly episodes, sign up at www.reidiamonds.com.